everyone to the China Innovation Panel at this SACS IO conference. It's an exciting time to be in the field that we're in. And in particular, what we want to do is highlight some of the exciting innovations that's taking place in China today. So our panelists with us, we will be discussing some of the highlights that each one of their companies are doing, discuss the innovation that's going on in China and how that is aligned with US and Europe, and how some of these Chinese companies are already presenting on the international stage. And then, of course, a lot of the discussion related to Chinese companies talk about the cross-border partnerships as well as the investments, and we'll touch upon that today as well. So I'm Helen Chen, head of L.E.K's China Life Science practice. I am based in Shanghai. L.E.K, as many of you know, is in a global international consulting firm focused on growth stage companies. Life science and healthcare happens to be our single largest practice, and we work in all areas of growth related to commercial and innovation. Just a few points for those familiar or perhaps less familiar with China. Clearly, 1/5 of the world's population resides in China. It is also the second largest GDP and the second largest pharmaceutical market. Specifically related to cancer, which is the forum's primary focus. Unfortunately, we are also seeing 4 to 5 million new cancer incidents each year. And vast majority of patients do get treated, but perhaps not always with the latest innovative therapies. So this is where the patients are, and as companies interested in cancer and supporting oncology, this is why you should be thinking about China, right? 37% of the global lung cancer population, 44% of the stomach cancer, over 50% of the liver cancer patient populations. We've been talking about sort of the Chinese government moving towards innovation, enhancing or simplifying, aligning the regulatory processes with international norms ever since 2017. So there has been a lot of the improvements over the last 5 years. Beyond drug therapy, which has allowing for international multi-center trials, submission of global data, and so on. There's also a lot of excitement going around in cell therapy, especially related to the ability to allow investigator-initiated trials to see the clinical data, and hopefully some of our panelists will be discussing that today as well. The outbound investments from the Chinese companies, biopharmas going out into the world have also been increasing. In 2020, which I know was a very difficult year for all the companies, there were 135 healthcare deals from China out into the world, of which that's about 1/3 of which are in oncology. And so this is more than twice what it was back in 2018. So the interest in oncology is certainly high. So in addition to sort of some of the in-licensing and investments, which often make the news, I think in 2020 is also a breakthrough year in terms of how the world sees Chinese innovation, in that there are some definitive deals that acknowledges the Chinese innovation as being able to sort of go into the world. So there were a couple of eye-popping PD1 deals, and we can touch upon that today. But in addition to that, what we also saw Lilly licensing a selective BCL2 inhibitor for blood cancers from a subsidiary of Fosun, a Chinese conglomerate. And that is for up to 440 million in terms of total payments for the greater global rights ex Greater China. And then similarly, AbbVie licensed I-Mab's anti-CD47 for outside of Greater China, and this one had an $180 million from milestone. So we are talking about very similar levels to what a typical US biopharma or European biopharma would get for a global partner valuation for their assets. And hopefully these are not the exceptions that proves the rule, but is just the beginning of many exciting things to come. So we will be talking about all of these as part of today's discussion. And perhaps, first of all, let me ask each one of the panelists to introduce themselves, their company, and their exciting portfolios. Let's start with Dewan at BeiGene.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for the rest of panelists to join this discussion. As you said, this is actually emerging trend that more and more innovation in China. We're really excited to be part of this wave. So I work for BeiGene. I'm the head of research evaluation at BeiGene. And I guess you want me to introduce myself or my company? Sorry, just want to clarify.
Both, please.
Okay. So I think that, so first with myself, I've been with BeiGene for 4 years. The first year and a half, I was actually in clinical development. So that's 2017, 2018. BeiGene actually put our first wave molecule into pivotal studies. And then we started to transition into focusing more innovative early development pipeline. So I transitioned into the BD search evaluation role. And prior to BeiGene, I worked at Pfizer, Gilead, CV Therapeutic, and Sharing AG, collectively 23 years together in the pharmaceutical industry. And majority of my career has been in clinical development, supporting a global development team from IND to NDA. So back to BeiGene. As you all know, BeiGene is only 10 years old. We celebrated 10-year anniversary. This is the background I chose today. And so we already have 3 molecules that developed in-house that get approved in China, as well as our BTK inhibitor approved in the US. And you mentioned about some of the major news in PD1 deals. Clearly, we actually very proud of our collaboration with Novartis. Collectively, our goal is to be able to deliver innovative medicine to more patients around the globe. So BeiGene's strength has always been innovation from research. So the first wave of molecule I mentioned, PD1, BTK, and PARP, they are all differentiated assets. We're trying to understand how to improve the class of molecule to deliver more efficacy and safer. So the second wave of our innovation actually more toward first-in-class molecule. And even though this panel is focused on IO, but we all know that we really need every single modality to fight cancer, right? So beyond IO, target therapy and cell therapy are also the key tools we need to use. And the next wave clearly is a combination. How do we combine drug rationally and achieve more cure in more tumor types? And let me stop here, give other panelists opportunity to introduce themselves.
Thanks. Maybe Weiyong, can you go next?
Sure, thank you, Helen. So my name is Weiyong San, and I joined the Hansoh Pharma 2 months ago as Chief Business Officer and the Global BD Head. So before Hansoh, I worked for Daiichi Sankyo, a Japanese pharmaceutical company, for 19 years. And there I worked 5 years in the Tokyo R&D Center, and then 14 years in the US at the BD function. So my education includes MD from Beijing Medical University, now Peking University Medical School, a PhD from University of Tokyo, and MBA from Columbia Business School. Hansoh is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in China. We have very broad therapeutic area. In oncology area, actually most of our drugs are developed internally. We have 2 drugs on the market. One is the second generation BCR-ABL for CML, and the second one is the third generation EGFR for second line non-small cell lung cancer, and we are moving to first line. We also have a lot of kinase inhibitor, including CMAT, CDK4 and 6, and PI3 kinase alpha in clinical stage. And for the EGFR third generation, last year we did out-licensing deal and out-licensed the ex-China right to EQRx, a Boston-based biotech company, and we got 100 million upfront payment. Let me stop here.
Well, that's exciting as well. I think Hansoh probably had a very similar timeline, perhaps just a little bit older than BeiGene. So yeah, I would say it's probably one of the first, amongst the first, both are amongst the first of this current generation of the innovative biopharmaceutical companies, although Hansoh has a very, very different starting point than BeiGene did. William, why don't you go next? So you also had a very long and interesting history in the Chinese innovation landscape.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you all the panelists. Actually, I don't have a long history. It's very short. Gracell, I think up today is exactly 4 anniversary since the foundation was founded in May year 2017. But I'm in the industry for quite a long time. I'm probably one of the oldest person. The last company called CBMG, right? That's the company was also listed in NASDAQ and then now delisted. Myself, I graduated from Shanghai Medical University. Now it's part of Fudan Medical School. And I got a PhD in immunopharmacology at the Medical College of Virginia. And I spent years in academic research in the similar field, transplantation, immunosuppressive drugs, before I joined the industry called Chiron. So if you're old enough, you probably know Chiron. And then I joined Affymetrix, and so I'm moving to more sort of operational, commercial roles before I start the entrepreneurship, CBMG, and then now Gracell. Now Gracell again is focusing on CAR-T. Right now it's a CAR-T therapy company. It's one of the 100 in China. But I think we have a very clear mission. Since this is the second company in cell therapy that I co-founded or funded, and I really want to resolve some issues, not just come up with new targets, new molecules, and going through the lengthy process. So the mission was obviously the CAR-T therapy is very expensive. So how do we control the cost of goods? How do we make the process less personalized, more scalable? So the 4 problem of the industry is lengthy production process, very high cost, and the lack of off-the-shelf product and ineffectiveness against the solid tumor. So these are the sort of 4 market needs that we thought we can do something about it. So we developed, as an innovative company, developed called FastCAR, which is a 24 hours manufacture process. And on top of that, the CAR-T cell from the FastCAR process is much younger and persistent longer and proliferates much potently in vivo. And then the other platform we also developed in-house is called TruUCAR, which is off-the-shelf CAR-T therapy, which is the future of the CAR-T therapy. So right now we have 2 products in clinical IIT phase 1/2 in China, and we are moving the 2 leading products, the other 2 leading products, which is against multiple myeloma, but that's a dual CAR instead of single CAR. And the second product moving to the United States for trials is TruUCAR against T-cell malignancy. As you know, CAR T-cell traditionally is taking T-cell from patient and then turn around and make a CAR T cell against the B cell malignancies. And it's very difficult or challenge to take T cell out of the patient without contaminating the T cell pool, especially in the T cell leukemia or lymphoma patients, the T cell are compromised. So taking T cell from healthy donor to make a UCAR T make a lot of sense. So that's the second product, and it's most importantly, it's a platform. It's a standalone platform. The company now have 300 people based in Shanghai and Suzhou. Now we are expanding, and that's why I'm here in Bay Area, setting up, R&D clinical team. In addition to the financial team is already in the East Coast, and we listed in NASDAQ January 8. So yeah, thank you.
Congratulations. So I mean, so it sounds like all the companies have gone on quite a bit of a journey. Dewan, in particular, for example, you mentioned from first generation to the second generation of assets. So as you think back on sort of the history with BeiGene, what are some of the key inflection points in the company and what contributed to the success that you have today? I think Weiyong is just listed. I know Hansoh had a fabulous listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. In BeiGene, is it worth what, $20 or $30 billion capitalization now? So I mean, we have some financially successful companies here. So how did you make that transition, and what are some of the key decisions and points that you've made?
Yeah, I think a lot of this owed to our founders, right? So BeiGene, founded by John Euler, who's a business person passionate about helping patients, and Xiaodong Wang is the scientist who actually have a vision, what type of molecule, what type of innovation that he would like to develop in this company. So I think, as I said, we are 10 years, and the first wave of molecule, they've chosen the molecule that they think is a foundational medicine. And the key is to really understand the science and develop the differentiated molecule. And some of the key milestones in the company journey is the first is to build not only the science, build the global clinical development team. I think in the 2015, that's when the company started to build robust development team. So from a science-based company to a development-based company. And 2016 is when we went IPO in the US, right? BeiGene was the first development stage biotech in China when IPO on the NASDAQ. And then the second transformative is actually collaboration with Celgene, now as a BMS. So by working with Celgene, we in-licensing 3 molecules from Celgene. That's actually jumpstart BeiGene to a commercial company. So again, that's a key milestone. We built our commercial sales force and a foundation, and that actually eventually launched our own drug, right? The 3 drugs that we developed in-house, that it launched with a very experienced commercial team. So I think Xiaobin Wu, the president of the company, had probably 30 years experience and leading a commercial organization in China. So he truly built the first class commercial organization. And both from research, clinical, and commercial, the foundation is science. We really emphasize that we want innovation, we want science, we want high quality. And the other transformative thing I think BeiGene has done is build our own manufacturing infrastructure. So we have 2 manufacturing facilities, one in Suzhou, one in Guangzhou. We could produce both small molecule and large molecule. Again, so those are the 4 pillars for BeiGene success. Obviously, we have very smart CFO, Howard Liang, that really lead the financial journey of the company. So we owe a lot of success in our financial success to Howard. But I think it's all our leadership who actually bring their previous success in other company, other multinational company to Beijing, and collectively we want to build a company that develop innovative drug that make it affordable to patients around the globe. That's how the Beijing's journey is.
Right. Clearly a lot of very large steps taken in the last decade. Weiyong, does Hansoh see things slightly differently? What are some of the key inflection points?
Sure, Hansoh definitely have like a different path compared to Beijing. As most of you know that Hansoh's founder family is a very famous family in China because the husband, Mr. Zeng, was the founder for Hungary, and the wife, Mrs. Zeng, is the founder for Hansoh, right? And so Hansoh started the business, from the generic business. So, Hansoh made profit, from the early days. So that is, I think, maybe a little different from the typical the R&D model such as Beijing. And however, the company was founded in 1995. Now we have 12,000 employees and more than 1,000 R&D colleagues. So we transformed from a generic company into an innovative company. I would say 2019 probably is the most important year for Hansoh. And that is the year that Hansoh went to the Hong Kong for IPO. And currently Hansoh, the market cap of Hansoh is about $25 billion to $30 billion, depending on the stock price. But Hansoh went to Hong Kong not for raising money. Actually, Hansoh has already been, making profit since early days, and so we wanted to be more transparent to the investors. So that is one of the reasons that we went to the IPO in Hong Kong. And also 2019 is the year that Hansoh established the fourth R&D center. So in China, we have 3 R&D centers. The biggest one is in Shanghai, from drug discovery to clinical development. Second one is in Lianyungang. So that is where Hansoh started, and it's a more small molecule scale up process. And the third one in Changzhou, and that is for CMC, especially for biologics. And the fourth one we established in Maryland. And now in Maryland, we have more than 40 scientists working on very innovative drugs with focusing in the oncology and immunology area. So that, I think, is like a Hansoh's history. Also, even for the BD team, it's a very young BD team, and we only started the BD activity in 2019. And in the past 2 years, we did 6 major deals, and 4 in licensing, 1 out licensing, and 1 research collaboration.
Hey, Weiyong, do you think of yourself as a big pharma, given how many people and how big of an infrastructure you have?
That's a very good question. So when people ask me why I left a big pharma and joined the Hansoh, I give the reason as Hansoh is, especially because I'm based in the US. So Hansoh, and so the US subsidiary of Hansoh is Hansoh Bio. So Hansoh Bio is a small biotech with big pharma resource.
Okay. All right, William. So I mean, I think you started, as you mentioned, Gracell is only 4 years old. So did you start the company with all the things that you want to put in place, or was there also a transition during that short period of time?
Well, this is kind of a company typical as a startup from scratch. So I start as a single man, and then with some of the former employees back at the CBMG. So that's how I start. I think, and then the investors really, it's the right time for this kind of company to thrive in China. The investors all know me through the past careers, so that's how easy for me to raise the money just the idea. We want to do something to reduce the cost. We want to do something, to tackle the solid tumor, and they believe me, and then they really, So I think that's a typical startup. But then I think talking about transition, I think we are in the brink of transition. IPO certainly not just raise money. In addition to the money we raised, they certainly start to, allow us to market ourselves in a certain way. At least the company is transparent, and we have to stick to the development timelines, and more credible in the sense of attract talents. And at least now listing NASDAQ, hopefully this is a signal of recognition of this main stage. And then this also draw some attention from big farmers. So I think we are in the brink of transition to next stage.
That's great. I think both Dewan and Weiyong talked about sort of the global clinical team and international research centers. William, are you also doing R&D in multiple geographies, or is it only in China?
This is a question for me?
Yes.
Yes. We haven't really officially launched yet, but as I said, this is the reason I'm here. Of course, the most important reason to see my family after 1 year and 3 months. So yeah, we are trying to identify the suitable place for R&D center. For clinical trial, right now we we have a partnership with Lonza, which is the largest cell therapy CDMO company. And moving forward, phase 2 maybe, we'll considering build GMP facility. So that's the sort of a predictable pathway. But I think very important to build R&D center in US because the innovation, our innovation is actually start from US. And we take advantage of the China clinical resource and the clinical IT systems for innovative therapies. And that really give us a very high efficiency of capital spending. And that's enable us to sort of boost to next stage. But for long run, given the geopolitical environment, given the long-term development, what we see in the next 5-10 years, can Gracell sustain its ability of innovation? Can Gracell become the true leader in this space? And we need a lot of resources and not just talents, but also, the collaboration, license in and out. So this is the place to be.
Right. Can you talk a little bit more about the clinical resources and the IIT that's available in China? I'm sure the audience who's less familiar with China would like to understand a little bit more around what resources and infrastructure is available here.
Yeah, and that's one of the particular reason I start this company again in China. Cell therapy, gene therapy, and gene sequencing, right? Genomic sequence. These are the area has entry barriers for foreign companies. Now, in addition to entry barrier, and this is the place that clinical IT exists. Clinical IT meaning under Commission of Health and Family Planning. And that system is unique in the sense that is different from clinical IT in the United States. The United States clinical IT has to be approved by FDA, the same agency. In China, is approved by different level of authority. It gives more flexibility, especially for cell and gene therapy. Okay, and also for gene sequence as well. So talking about Burning Rock and all these companies in this genomic sequence service, right, for cancer prediction or pharmacogenomics. So cell therapy, particularly in China, is very popular. And the hospitals, the PIs are familiar with cell therapies. So there are much less resistance from religions, from politicals, from any other sides. And that really gives us a hands of, especially for innovative drugs, like, CAR T, where what we are doing is no one has done it the way we developed the CAR T. So the immediate concern is, what if we, it just induce severe side effects as an innovative drug, and then our clinical pathway is blocked. It's in China, the PI is also very, careful. So, but it's more tolerable. So if we start from, dose escalation and so on, it's easier for us to get the clinical data to de-risk the innovative drugs or designs before we can elaborate the data and to put more capital into development of a particular molecule or construct. So now I have to be fair, the downside of clinical IIT in China is the quality of data, the credibility of the research. And this is the constant question that we are facing or we've been facing when you go on IPO during roadshow, the cross rounds, and all our who is who investors, before they invest us, this is the question, right? So, and we are grateful that Legend has made the lead, made example, that data being not just repeated by Janssen, also in actually turn out to be better, slightly better. So this is really give a lot of credibility to certain company who are doing serious IIT in China. So to mitigate those doubts, and of course we start from very serious design and execute in the way that it's supposed to be, like R&D trial. And as we hired this Martina Search, who was the CEO of Mustang Bio and also executive medical director of Amgen. So she bringing those compliance, the clinical pharmacological vigilance, and with very high sensitivity of data quality, and so on. And the hospital PI, we select the ones for multiple trials for multiple companies. And we try to be transparent. When the investor do DD, we open up all the database, let them to go through and interview our PIs and so on. But it's kind of upstream, a battle. But I think more and more company, hopefully in our particular field, Legend and us, get on being a public company and then be disciplined and then trying to do everything as supposed to be as the main field. And those are the things we need to pay attention.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing around both the positives as well as some of the caveats around that. Clearly, not everything is all in rose-colored lenses. Dewan, you also mentioned that BeiGene does run a global clinical operation. Can you sort of share how all the international pieces work together, or do you just do everything sort of? Are they in parallel? Are they together? How is that done? And what are some of the key things to think about as companies think about international operations, including China and the US and other components you have?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, global clinical development is one of the unique features and strength of BeiGene. So the way we conduct pivotal studies is actually truly a global study, but China inclusive. As I mentioned, I used to work for Pfizer and Gilead, and when we did pivotal studies, usually it's US, Europe centric, and there may be Japan and South Korea participation. But the global study BeiGene ran, quite often, many of them, we could enroll more than 50% of patients from China. So what the advantage is that we all know is the speed of enrollment. The number of patients, unfortunately, is very high in China. And the investigators are very enthusiastic of putting patients in clinical trial so they can get potential better treatment than the available drugs. And so the speed is really critical. And the second thing is per patient cost in China is still lower than the rest of the world. So by having a China inclusive or heavily leveraging China enrollment, it actually helps us to reduce the time and the cost of clinical development. But the key is we need to have a one global quality. So that we do have one SOP, regardless of what country enroll patients, is one global quality. It's difficult to build in the beginning. However, once we build this infrastructure, and there's just many benefits. And one of the example I can give is that one of the first that BeiGene has done, our BTK inhibitor, the first approval in the US, the pivotal study, our zanubrutinib, was solely a China-only study. And the reason FDA granted approval, first of all, the data quality, and then also the data itself, the clinical benefit provide patient. And then FDA did do inspection on the clinical side as well as our manufacturer. As William said, if you put this correct system in place, we can generate very high quality data from China. So I think that is, it does take time to build a global team, but in the end, I think it's very beneficial for BeiGene and all of our partners as well. I think that many companies want to partner with BeiGene because they recognize our global quality and enrollment speed in China.
Thank you. Weiyong, you have mentioned 4 research centers. Do you also do clinical development out of these? And so how does sort of these different centers collaborate together, or do they each have their own emphasis?
So as a guiding principle, our R&D center in Maryland is focusing on big molecule, and the Shanghai R&D center is focusing on small molecule. But on the other hand, there are always overlaps and synergies and collaborations between the 2 major R&D centers. So Hansoh has the capability to file IND and run clinical trials in the US. Actually, for the 3rd generation EGFR that I mentioned, because we had the clinical site for the phase 1/2 trial in the US. It is easier for us to find a partner to partner the ex-US rights. Currently, our R&D center in Maryland is mostly the drug discovery. Actually, we are hiring the translational science head, and I would expect that we will expand the clinical team soon.
Right. Do you have a philosophy, as BeiGene does, to essentially put everything as a global clinical program, or is that currently still evaluated on a one-by-one basis?
I think it's more like a one-by-one basis, and we have strong confidence that we, with our clinical capability in China and in the US, we are more open to collaboration with other big pharma or biotech companies.
Right. This brings us to a really good point. I think many, I read through sort of the attendees list for this conference and what they hope to achieve from the conference. And many would like to seek partners, whether for their own molecules or to partner with others. And I imagine many would like to work with companies in China on some of their assets, or partner elsewhere, or get investments. So given all of you seem to have a BD aspect of your role, perhaps you could share a little bit around the type of partnerships that you're seeking and the type of things that you're looking for. Weiyong, since we were with you, why don't you just continue that conversation?
Sure. Since Hansoh is one of the largest pharmaceutical company, we have many therapeutic areas. Actually, we are open to the latest stage clinical compounds for almost every therapeutic areas. So last deal we made is antifungal drug, and at the NDA stage, and so that one we paid $10 million US upfront payment for the China right. And so basically we wanted to in licensing clinical stage compound with a human POC and only for the China right. On the other hand, if the first in class is controlled by big pharma. Typically, big pharma wanted to do the development and commercialization in China themselves. We are also very open to, biotech companies. Even the biotech companies compound is only in phase 1 or phase 2A without a human POC, but because the MOA has been approved, right? So those kind of deals are what I'm looking for, and so the clinical stage opportunity for the Greater China, right? On the other hand, we are also looking for research collaborations using our Maryland R&D Center, like siRNA, bispecific, ADC. Now those like new modalities are what we are interested in.
Thank you. So, and you're also in strategic evaluations now. What type of things would you prefer to see?
Yeah, I think that we are probably all looking for the same thing, right? Innovative molecule at the commercial stage. That would be the ideal thing, because I know as our mission is to deliver affordable medicine to innovative medicine to as many patients as possible. So commercial stage or late stage clinical is our high priority, but we all know there are very few of them. And then any other innovation in the clinical stage where we see potential synergy with BeiGene's pipeline, that's our second priority. And we also, in terms of geography, if you look at the past 3 years, we've done many deals with the pharmaceutical company in US and Europe and helping bring their innovation to China. BeiGene collaboration is one of those examples. But this year, we are looking more working with China company, helping them to bring their innovation to the global stage. So we're kind of at a crossroad, and it doesn't matter where you are as an innovation. We want to make sure that we build the bridges and bring the medicine to global patients. And the other thing I want to say that we've also really, as our 3 molecules approved in China, we also want to establish more clinical collaboration by providing our medicine to other companies who may be able to see synergy between our molecule and their pipeline. So that's another way we are looking for collaboration with other biotech and pharma companies.
And are you sort of pivoting outside of oncology, or is still heavily oncology focused?
We have made a commitment to expand beyond oncology. So you probably have seen some deal we've made in the adjacent therapeutic area, inflammation, immunology, and infectious disease. And we continue to evaluate other therapeutic areas. The key is it has to have synergy with our commercial team and our R&D organization.
Okay, thank you. And William, you mentioned sort of setting up R&D centers or to sort of access more of the partnerships. Are you actively doing this kind of collaborations, or is it going to be a while after you have ramped up?
Yeah, we don't have a BD team such as strong as BeiGene and Hansoh. I myself is, wearing multiple hats, including BD. But what we are looking for is 2 folds. One is our leading product. For obvious reason, we are looking for partners when we have sufficient data to take over for ex-China market, particularly clinical development. And for China, we are looking for in-licensing or co-development in China for cell therapy products. The other fold of collaboration, we now just start to actively looking for partnership is to develop their product based on our fast CAR-T process, which is overnight production, and the TrueU CAR-T platform. So all they need to do is hook on their molecule and develop the specific CAR-T product. And so sort of enabling their development, that kind of collaborations.
You did mention there's over 100 companies in China, so in cell therapy, so there's probably many that who could take advantage, benefit from that as well. So for the audience members who would like to sort of tap more and explore more of these Chinese innovation, how should they consider working with companies like yourselves and others in this space? Are there some good recommendations that you can give them, given all of you are highly experienced in these discussions? Maybe Dewan, you can start us off on that.
Yeah, I think any company is interested in, working with BeiGene, please reach out to me. And what we always, when we work with a company, we always look for win-win situation. Want to understand how BeiGene can help you develop your medicine faster and a better quality, and then also deliver the medicine to broader populations. So, a lot of company maybe in the initial stage, if your molecule is not ready for licensing, we still want to, establish some relationship, and so that at the right transaction point, we can work with you.
Okay. Would attending conferences, which conferences would be the most useful? I think historically, right, I think everyone would have been together at ASCO by now, or perhaps January in San Francisco. What mechanism are you using now to outreach to companies that you couldn't really easily meet in person?
A lot of this is word of mouth, and WeChat is a perfect way to reach out to people. And I have many friends introducing me to, startup company or large pharmaceutical companies who are looking for partnership. So there's no limit how we can communicate. I think we just need to wear the thinking hat, figure out how to collaborate and generate value for both companies.
For the international audience, WeChat is like a WhatsApp, very popular in China, or Line, I guess, in Asia. That would be the alternative for some of them. Weiyong, how do you sort of recommend companies sort of reach out and discuss their opportunities with Chinese companies?
So for Hansoh, we have a very small BD team. So I have 2 team members in the US and 4 more in Shanghai. So we exchange information, very often. So no matter you contact, Shanghai team or the US team, we are one BD team. So that's one thing. Second thing is, I'm on LinkedIn, and I check my LinkedIn message very often. So you can always welcome to send me a message through LinkedIn.
Right, that might be a good one for those people who don't have WeChat. Right. William, what about cell therapy companies recognizing that they have a lot more sort of infrastructural constraints compared with traditional drugs?
There are 2, areas the potential collaborator or collaborator seeker need to pay attention. One is as Helen said, it's the infrastructure. It's a different setup. The other is legal structure. The cell therapy, stem cell, gene therapy, and gene sequencing, these are the areas that require a legal setup. And I'm sure, L.E.K, Helen is very experienced in that period, that area. Foreign company can't just come in, set up gene therapy company in China. So, but there are, examples like Gracell and the Legend. There are others, and AW, Fusion Kite. All these are joint venture set up offshore and are coming with a VIE structure. And this is very important. And the company council should, be able to seek this kind of help, advice.
Yeah. Thank you. I also know that many of the Chinese companies are actively knocking on doors of the biopharmas in U.S. and Europe, particularly if they sort of have announced their phase 2 data. For the companies, international companies not experienced with Chinese partnering, what should they do if someone comes calling? How do they know if they're credible companies like yourself? Many of the names are perhaps not known to the international community. What would you recommend they do to sort of as a first step in thinking about the China opportunity?
So I would say ask your potential Chinese partner to do the capability presentation. That is very important.
Right. So Weiyong, I know you've only been in Hansoh for a relatively short period of time, but clearly, do companies generally recognize the company name?
Actually not. Even at the end of last December, I did not know Hansoh. but I was so surprised. It's such a huge company. And for example, in regarding the sales force, we have 6,000 sales force in China, and for like the 4 key therapeutic area and oncology, CNS, infectious disease, and the metabolic disease. Each therapeutic area, we have more than 1,000 sales force. So that is amazing. That is the capability we have. And now I'm actively PR my firm and try to be your preferred partner in China.
Right. Dewan, I assume everyone or most companies have heard of BeiGene by now. Be the case?
Yeah, I think indeed that BeiGene's reputation is as probably one of the best company that had root in China. Although we do say that we're a global company, and most of our employees and a lot of our capability is built up in China first before we build in US and Europe. But still, as Weiyong said, that when we meet with partner, it's really key to talk about our capability and our achievement, right? I think this the Chinese company, the startup who hasn't built their reputation yet, the key is to build a high quality system so that again, that if China company all achieve very high quality, it lift up the China industry. So my advice is for every company, making sure quality first and patient safety first.
Okay, thank you. We should be wrapping up now, so perhaps let me invite everyone to, all the panelists to give a recommendation to the biopharmas who's listening to this presentation around what something that they could do, a key takeaway for them of your choice from this session. William?
Yeah, the key takeaway about partnership with Chinese company or innovative company, I would say in general, this is the right time because I always say that we are really lucky in the right time because the whole country at the different level of government and the wealth and the financial strength and also talent pool and the growing credibility of Chinese biotech companies. So these are, I think, the highlights in general. And then in particular area, for small molecule, large molecule, they are all star companies, representative companies. And then in a particular area like gene therapy, cell therapy, we think we are probably one of the oldest, although we only have 4 years old, but the team is the oldest, most experienced in this particular field. We know from legal structure and the clinical IIT, clinical trial system and IND approval in China. And we pay a lot of attention to data quality and the compliance, and that's exactly the reason why we chose to list in NASDAQ. So we are determined to be the best partner in the space.
Thank you. Weiyong, key takeaways for the companies?
Sure, I would recommend a US or European-based biotech company seriously consider license out the Greater China right to a Chinese company before doing a global deal. One example we have is the Vila Bio license out the CD19, BLA stage antibody to Hansoh before it was acquired by Horizon. And another famous example is a myocardia license out the Chinese right before acquired by BMS. So please consider license out the Chinese right first.
I think the important part there is that it doesn't impact your global valuation significantly, right? So
Exactly.
So that's still a viable opportunity to separate that. Dewan?
I guess I would echo what Weiyong said, not only to consider a China partner, but also consider China partner early, because as I said, Beijing's strength is really accelerate your global development, and so we could bring the medicine to patients sooner. So the sooner you consider having a China partner, you're better off if you're a global company. The same with the China innovation. We encourage the China innovation to try to go global as early as possible. And many startup companies start to do IND in the US, but a small company always have very limited resource. So finding a global partner is really about creating more value sooner for a startup company.
Thank you. I think we had a fabulous discussion today, so I want to thank my panelists for participating and contributing their thoughts. And again, I hope everyone saw that there's some really exciting work going on here in China, as well as the Chinese companies participating a lot more internationally. And I'm sure all of us here would love to hear from you if you have questions or some additional explorations. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Great job.